lightsabers from Star Wars are cool, but how do they work? Well, I think I figured that out. But first, let's get into what a lightsaber actually is. So, a lightsaber is a handle, pretty much. At first, it's just a handle with a switch that activates a special kind of crystal called a kyber crystal that then what seems to be a kind of plasma shoots out the top, and then you slash things and cut right through metal like butter. People say that kyber crystals actually create the plasma in lightsabers. I don't think that's how it works. Let me explain. But before we begin, let's talk about what is plasma. Plasma is a state of matter. It's hotter than a gas, it's hotter than a liquid, and it's hotter than a solid. That means plasma gets really, really hot. Fun fact, our sun is actually made out of a lot of plasma. So now, let's get into what I actually think is going on here. So remember when I said people think that the kyber crystals actually create the plasma? That's not true. And here's why. Like I said before, plasma is a state of matter. And like all states of matter, it had to have originated from something. There wasn't originally any plasma because the handle would get really, really hot and the kyber crystal can be turned on or off. So it can't originate from there. There can't already be plasma, or else it would always be shooting up. It can't be a gas. It can't be the oxygen in the air either, because it would actually be instead glowing around it because it would heat up anything around it. You might say, well, maybe it's a liquid. I think not, and here's why. If a liquid was constantly shooting up and being turned into plasma, well, it would actually leave a trail behind. Instead of when I swing into movies, it's like almost like a solid. It stays constant. So it can't be a liquid, or else there would be drops of liquid that would fall off. When you swing, it would have to create more liquid. It would actually fall back, and it would turn into plasma back. There would be a trail of plasma. And here's my point. I think it's actually a solid. Let me explain why. So, if you have a solid, it would be solid. It would stay constant. If you had the gas, it would just heat up everything around it and not everything straight up. And there wouldn't even be that much to heat up, so it wouldn't be as solid. In a liquid, it would leave a trail. The solid, it wouldn't. If you could get a dense enough solid that could create enough plasma, it had such a low temperature to turn into plasma that it was constantly turning into plasma, it would just stay. Since it would be a low temperature, then it would just unplasma as soon as it's not being heated up. That's why it would look like it stayed constant. And you might be saying, well, if there's a solid inside, why wouldn't we see it in the movies? Why wouldn't we see that solid? Well, I think it's because the glow of the plasma is actually covering it up. So that's why I think when they clash in the movies, the lightsabers against one another, that instead of just going right through each other like a plasma should do, it's actually the metal parts clashing. Let me explain mechanics behind this. So, you know a screw, right? It has the long bottom part that sticks out when you nail it, and the part that would go into what you're drilling in, the tiny part, is actually smaller. If we were to try to put that tiny part into a tube, let's just say that's a tube, it's a very bad tube, it would go up into the tube, but since this is actually wider than the hole through that, then it would stop as soon as it got there. And that's what I'm thinking of. We have the metal that is going to turn into the plasma, and then we have something here that's going to stop it. It's in the handle, and let's just say, is the gap probably bigger than this? Let's just say the gap is that big. This is still wider, so it would go up, and that would be out, but then that part would just stop inside, because it would bang against these sides. But then you might be saying to yourself, how are you going to fit that in a handle like this big, and then it goes all the way up there, all the way up? Well, I was thinking of, it's a popular mechanism. Some mechanical things use it, it's where basically small cylinder and then bigger and bigger cylinders so they fit inside each other and go down. I was thinking that, but they're really, really tight and they're each really, really small, so it's not easy to notice. And the kyber crystal's role in this is it would produce enough energy that it would heat up the metal part, and it would use its energy to heat up the metal part that would then create the plasma around it, and its glow would just block out the metal. And like I explained before, that's why you can't see it in the movies.